Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Rebuild It. Well, we're kind of back from our little hiatus that we had last week with the coupe, and so we're back on the Challenger, and hopefully we get a lot done at the front end of this thing this week, and that's the goal. So let's see what we can get done. First step when we got it in the shop was let's get this spot welds drilled out, top and bottom on both sides of this, get those bolts out, and then we'll see if our new crash bar holes line up. Alright, so I've got all the bumper pieces off, and here's my new to me front crash bar. So when I hold it up here, you see that my flanges are still not out far enough. So what I should have done was taken this crash bar up there when I was pulling it and make sure I got the right angle. So I could take a hammer and beat these flanges out to where they go, but it's going to be a lot smoother if I just bolt my other two little pieces back on, take it back out to the tree and pull it just out a little bit more, and then set this crash bar up on top and make sure everything lines up. Okay, so here's where I am now. I do have the frame horns are pulled in a little bit, about a ½ inch it looks like. I've got the one right down there bolted in, just one bolt, and then when I get ready to bolt this one in, I got a bolt sticking through this hole, and when I put it in, I'm about a ½ inch, maybe a little bit less from the bolt hole. That means the frame rails have been moved in a tad bit. The next step that I think, because I'm gonna have to take all this stuff off anyway, my other parts of them, I've been waiting for radiator, condenser, fans, all that for weeks now because everything's back ordered. But I got to take all this off anyway, and I've got a porta power. So given that they're the same distance in, I can put a porta power in between them and crank it out and spread them apart. See if we can get them to spread them apart a little bit farther than they need to be, and then let them come back in a little bit when we take the pressure off, and hopefully we can get that ½ inch. I mean, it's only a ½ inch on each side, so it's a very small amount. Alright, so I went ahead and got the radiator out of the way, left the oil cooler hooked up, the transmission cooler. Now you can really see the front of this thing. There's the tensioner we replaced. I don't see any other damage of any kind. Alright, I've got a porta power in there, and I've got those spread apart just a little bit. So we'll put our bumper back up there and see if we can get the holes to line up. Then we also have this dented spot right here that I need to put and make these little things. If they spread out, we'll try to push that dent back out. So probably need to do that before we try to get the bumper on. Okay, so that spread apart pretty easy enough to line the holes up. But when I get ready to get in here and mess with this dent right here, I can't get my tool right here in there because of that flange up in here. It's too close together. So I really need to take this flange off, which is held on by like 5 or 6 spot welds. I probably need to drill those out and try to knock this thing off so that I've got plenty of room to get in that frame rail and spread that apart. And once we've done that, then I weld this back on, and then we can spread it apart again and get our crash bar on. All right, so that dent came out. About 98% out. And then what we'll do is grind off all these little pieces now that we can get to them, and that should slide right back in there, and we'll re-weld it. All right, so I don't have that little piece welded in yet, but I've got it all lined back up. And the crash bar lined right back up with the holes the way it was pre-wreck, I think. So I think we've got everything straight. I don't see anything else we need to do as far as framework. So next thing would be to weld that piece back on, and then we'll need to paint this crash bar. Alright, so there we have it. It's all back on. And check out the line up there. Even the old spot weld lines up with the old hole. And that one too, even though it's from a different car. So what I want to do now is go ahead and get this crash bar ready to paint. So I need to remove those ends off of there and go ahead and spot weld this little spot here and the one on the other side, and then there's one on each side underneath the crash bar. Then we'll back this, and actually I'll probably sand this little surface rust area off of there, and then we'll back it out, wash it really good and let it dry. And I went to Mike's yesterday and got paint, and this is tri-coat paint. Okay, of course it's some kind of complicated thing. So anyway, there's a first stage, and you put 3 coats of this on there, and then you put 3 coats of this on this. This is the pearl part, or whatever the top part of it is. And Mike also wants me to spray one of these test cards while I'm doing the rest of it, so that we can test it, because all I'm doing is the underpoint stuff right now, the crash bar and the radiator support. And then whenever we get back to his shop to actually do the real paint, then he can see the color that he mixed for me for that and see how it matches with the rest of the car. So let's get it all cleaned up, ready to paint. Okay, everything is welded and ground down, and so now I need to just get it outside, get it cleaned up. So let's start this thing and back her out. Only let it run for just a few seconds. Alright, so we're going to get this thing ready to paint. We're going to get the hood off out of the way. We'll take this
washer fluid reservoir out of the way so I can get behind that crash bar. And then we'll cover the whole car and try to get plastic wrapped around all this stuff because I don't want any overspray on the engine or anything back in there. So, and the reason we didn't just spray it when it was off the car is because I had to weld these tabs back on, and I'd end up having to just do it again in those areas. So I'd rather just tape around it and spray it all on the car. So let's get started. Alright, so I've got all that stuff off and ready to start getting plastic put on. On the side note, check out the difference between the size of a Challenger hood versus a ZR1 Corvette hood. I mean, that thing is gigantic. Alright, so there we have it. Not the greatest tape job ever, but trying to paint this in the winter, just a little small spot without putting out a paint booth and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and prime those bare metal spots on there and let them sit a while, and then we will spray some red. Also, I wanted to show you before I spray this that at the factory, I guess they do this frame before they put the, the motor or anything in. And I mean, it's just like a haphazard spray. You can see there's still the e-coat on there. I mean, they're just kind of like, it's like hit and miss, so it's not a great job from the factory. I'll probably spray the crash bar pretty well in the front just so I can test to see if I ever want to try to shoot tri-coat again. See if I can do it and make it look decent. But from the factory, it was like just barely even covered. So all right, so unfortunately this is gonna have to be my setup to paint. It's like blowing 20-mile-an-hour wind outside, and it's probably 55 degrees, and so I'm gonna have to crack the door and turn a fan on in here and try to suck it out. But I'm spraying such a little amount, hopefully this will be all right, that I've got to spray this upper radiator support. I'm gonna have to put some adhesion promoter on there first, and I'm already done with the primer on there. And so I do the adhesion promoter, and then we got to do 3 coats of the stage 1, and then 3 coats of the stage 2, and then I'm just going to hit a little bit of clear on there, not very much. All right, so I'm getting ready to mix or to get paint in the gun. I've already got the adhesion promoter on the radiator support. And there is the stage 1. Man, that is red. I mean, it's like fire engine red. I don't know how good it shows up on camera, but that does not look like what the car is. So I guess since it's multiple stage, it changes the color as you put the stages on there. So we'll get this sprayed. All right, I have 3 coats of the stage 1 on there, plus on Mike's card there. So now let's go to stage 2 and see what it does. And it does look more, closer to that red color now that it's on the car. So it doesn't look as fire engine ready as it did in the can. So we'll see what the second stage does. so I've got all my coats of the stage 1 and stage 2 on, and now I'm going to just shoot one coat of clear on there because I'm not even sure they had any clear on there from the factory at all. But I kind of wanted to give Mike a card there with some clear on it, so I'm just going to shoot one light coat on there. It's not going to hurt anything. All that it's going to cost me is time cleaning the gun back up again, so I'll shoot that and then we'll call it good. Alright, so I've got the clear on there, and check out this spot where the light is shining through the door over there. I don't know if you can see it on here or not, but it does have all those metallics sparkling in it, and it looks just like what's on the Challenger. So it'd be interesting to see once this stuff dries. I can set that up next to the fender or something to see if the metallics look the same. I was actually supposed to get enough of the paint on there to cover up that stripe, and I did not get enough on there, so hopefully it's a good enough sample for Mike. Well, that's all the time we've got for this week, guys. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please give us a thumbs up down below, and make sure you're a subscriber. If you watch our videos often, subscribe, and that'll notify you when we have a new one available. So we'll see you next week, and thanks for watching.
And always remember, don't retire it if you can rebuild it. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in and watching this week's episode of Rebuild It. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any awesome content. Have a good one.